What's up, everybody? I'm Brandon. Killmark Collectors. That's right. We just had a really big update though, and I felt like I'm big, so yeah, try something different, right? Today we're going to be talking about Faction Wargames, the new release that came out last night, and a little bit of a beginner's guide, a little bit of tips and tricks. Either way, let's get into it so that you can start winning more games and getting those LP points. Let's undock and get started. If you guys are anything like me, you're probably a little bit tired because Faction Wargames came out last night, but didn't actually come out last night. It was time boxed until this morning, and so it was about 4 a.m. my time before we were actually able to get our hands on it. I did jump in and play a couple of games this morning and took away some pretty interesting lessons learned that I want to share with y'all today so that you can make the most of your time in the Faction Wargames, because we only have 2-hour blocks throughout the day, and there's only 3 of them. So, yeah, I am going to be doing a live stream later tonight, probably about, I think it's 8 p.m. Mountain Time. Apologies for you guys that are in Europe and Asia. I know that that's off time for you, but because I can't do it at any time, I can't set the stream at a fun time. Be sure to jump in. I think it'll be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to playing this more. I think it's a fun game type. Now, just to get started here, you do need to be in an NPC station, so it doesn't matter which one you're in, but it just has to be an NPC station, not a capsuleer outpost or a corporation outpost. This is really important because a lot of us have our bases set in the corporation outposts or personal outposts, and so you are going to need to make sure that you have access to an NPC station, whether that's in high sec, low sec, or null sec. And I personally went ahead and just reset my base so that I can pod back and start playing these when those time windows open. Now, they are only available for a couple hours a day, and so make sure that you are prepped and ready to go if you want to make the most out of these loyalty points and get some of those really great rewards that are in the LP store. When you do get to that NPC station, you can go ahead and click on the new icon in the lower right hand corner for Faction Wargames. When you do that, you'll see that the start button is grayed out if you're not in one of those time windows. Now, again, this is really frustrating, but it is what it is. I can think of plenty of good reasons for why they would limit it in availability, especially at the start. But just my personal opinion, the fact that we didn't know that it was going to be time boxed is really frustrating. Again, just I wish that the devs had been a little bit more upfront about that. But once we do jump in, you do see that you are able to join a match, and then you will immediately get randomly placed into a team. Now, the interesting thing here, and the first tip that I'm going to give you, is that you do not have to use the faction that you are sorted into, or put into, or whatever. You can click on the little filter icon and actually select different ships. I did not realize this until after the War Games and we were talking in Alliance chat. I was wondering why I kept seeing like Atrons when it was Mimitar and Amar, fighting each other. But that's why. So this is really important because what you can do is if you have those small weapon skills for different weapon platforms, you can go ahead and select one that is going to be more suitable for your skill set. You do have 3 different categories of ships: the scouts, which are basically the bombers, the interceptors and assault frigates, and then your destroyers, which they call brawlers, but they're not really brawlers, but it's fine, whatever. So tip number 1 here is going to be that if you don't like the ships that you are given, for example, I don't fly small lasers, so I have no skills in that, I can go ahead and actually flip over, filter onto a different set of ships, and select one that is more suitable for my skills. Now, once we actually get into the game, there is going to be an initial kind of drop point or spawn point. You can then warp to any of the 4 asteroid belts that will spawn the haulers. There will be 2 haulers that are spawned initially, and typically, at least what I've seen so far, is that each team will go to 1 and try to focus that hauler down as quickly as possible. Now, this brings me into tip number 2, which is the way that scoring works. And the way that scoring works is that you only get credit for the last shot on that hauler. Let me say that again. You only get points for the last shot on the hauler. You may be able to see where I'm going with this, but that means that all of the other DPS does not matter when it comes to scoring. Tip number 3 is going to be lock up the hauler at all times so that you know what the health is looking like, and you can switch your focus fire if you need to so that you can try to score that last hit. What this means is that you need to be critically aware of the health of the hauler at all times, and I would recommend going ahead and locking it up even if you are engaged with somebody else, because if that hauler gets down to almost dead and you are able to switch your DPS over to it, not only are you able to score points for your team if you get that last hit, but you're also able to get more points for your personal ranking and advance faster and get up to those higher tier rewards. Now, tip number 4 is going to be similar to that, but slightly different in focus, and that is that I want you to unstack your guns and cycle them manually. Again, we're trying to get the last hit, not just on the hauler, but also on enemy players. You get 20 points for an enemy player kill, you get 50 points for a hauler kill, and so if you cycle your guns, if there are multiple people firing at that particular target, you have a better chance of getting that last hit and being able to get those points. Tip number 5 is to focus down the bombers first. The bombers have some ridiculous DPS compared to all the other ships because they're using those medium weapons, and with bombardment mode, they can really get a hauler down very quickly, but they're very, very squishy. If a bomber lands, there's a good chance that they're going to immediately try to hit that hauler. That's about the only thing that they really can hit effectively. They can hit some of the destroyers, but realistically, they are there to kill the hauler. If you can get them and kill them quickly, not only are you getting a kill yourself, you're also saving your team from potentially having a kill sniped out from under you. So be ready to focus those down, be able to switch your DPS very quickly, and hopefully you'll be able to prevent that bomber from coming in and just sniping that kill at the last minute. Tip number 6 for bomber pilots, this is to warp at range and really understand kind of where you're going to be applying that DPS. Again, I want you to focus on the haulers only because you're really not going to hit much else. So warp in probably about 20 kilometers, start applying that DPS with those unstacked guns so that you're just getting that steady stream of DPS to try to have your best chance of actually killing it and getting that last hit. But the other thing that this will do is, because a lot of players will warp down at 0, if you are a little bit further out, you won't show up on the little ticker at the top. And so you'll be outside of kind of the kill zone, if you will, because everyone else will be seeing, especially their allies, and you may be able to get a couple of extra seconds where you can actually snipe that hauler out. If you are at the start of a match where there are 2 different teams going to 2 different haulers, you're not all on one, as a bomber pilot, if you see that your hauler goes into armor, go ahead and start warping to the other one and see if you can get a kill on that last hit. By the time you land, the enemy hauler should be about in hull, and if you have your guns unstacked and you're cycling and you throw bombard mode on real fast, you may be able to get that kill. And if you do, then not only are you getting the 50 points for yourself, again, you're starting your team off with a 2-0 advantage, and when there's only 6 points to get, that's really big. Just a thought. Tip number 7 is that you are likely going to want to gravitate towards the Interceptors because Interceptors are OP and just the weapon of choice for a lot of people right now. And that's great. And in the main game, I completely support that. I think assault destroyer or assault frigates are vastly underpowered. However, here, especially if you look at some of the fits that have extenders and damage control units, those things are tanky as crap. Yes, YouTube, I censored myself. You're welcome. Don't underestimate the power of these ships. I think that they're going to be some of the most underutilized, at least in the first couple of days here, until people start realizing how much resist and how much health these things can have. So be aware of that, and don't be afraid to jump into one and to just go start messing with some of these other interceptors. On the flip side of this, just like in the real game, destroyers kind of suck. And the biggest reason for this, I think, is just that they put Higgs anchors on these things. I don't know why. It doesn't feel like it was really needed. They're so slow. I think it took me like 15 seconds to warp when I was first playing with one of the Dragoons. They don't even have the mods that really make the destroyers good, which is the webs and the newts and all of that stuff. So I personally am not really planning to fly destroyers much in this, which is really frustrating and annoying, but that's kind of where we're at. I think if you're going to try to be applying damage to the haulers, you may as well just be in a bomber. If you're going to be trying to fight other frigate pilots, realistically, the interceptors and assault frigates are just as good, if not better. Number 8 is that even while you don't have any penalty for dying other than just the time it takes to respawn, I want you to not be afraid to warp out. And the reason here is that, yes, it may take you 30 seconds, or it may only take 30 seconds or anything like that, but you are going to still be out of the fight. You're not going to be applying DPS, and especially if you're in a critical moment, that 30 seconds could be the tipping factor because your team is just down a pilot and you can't apply quite as much DPS, or you can't get those other ships off the field. So don't be afraid to warp out. If you land right in the middle of a group of reds, don't feel like you just have to die. You can try to go ahead and warp out and live to fight another day, basically. Number 9 is that you need to be watching your cap a lot more than normal. And I think that this is a big piece of how the skills are impacting and not being able to fit our own ships. A lot of these are just clearly not cap stable. I ran out of cap on the Tall War in like 30 seconds. It's just, you need to be very, very careful and very, very aware, or else you're going to be very, very dead. I would say most of the time I'm actually not, especially in the destroyers, I'm probably not going to be flying with the micro warp drive on, because there's just not really a reason to. All of the fighting is going to happen within 15 to 20 kilometers. And that's within missile range, and there's no webs on the Tall War, but there's webs on the Interceptors, which I'd be trying to kill. So I don't really know why I'd really be moving, if I'm being honest. I might slow boat, but even again, with the Higgs anchor on there, it's so freaking slow. I don't even, yeah, I'm just going to basically treat myself as a stationary gun platform for a lot of this stuff, which is, again, kind of unfortunate, but that's the way they built it. Don't look at me. All right, and speaking of skills, I need to do more testing on this to be sure. It does appear that there are some incremental increases that you'll get by being skilled into the platform and the ship type that you're flying, particularly, I think, with the cruising command bonuses. I know that for my destroyer character, when I was flying some of the destroyers, they did feel a little bit more maneuverable. I don't have a good answer on exactly how much they matter. I'm planning to do some more analysis later today, but I was more just kind of enjoying and playing the game itself this morning. So there is going to be a lot of nuance and learning. So leave me a comment down below with your experience. I really do want to kind of just see what people are thinking and feeling. Overall, I think it's a fun gameplay. I think it's a lot of cool tactical options. The fits suck, but it is what it is, you know? So either way, let me know kind of what you're thinking. Like, subscribe if you found this video helpful. And until next time, which is probably going to be pretty soon here, fly safe.